Sometimes the coaches sub out the players because they know they've been on all game. They need to sub them out so that way they can get the rest the player needs in order to avoid injury. Because if they stay in too long, they're going to get injured, they're going to get tired. There's just no way the body can expend that much energy. How's it going, Thrivers? Miguel here with CFS Recovery. This video, I want to talk about the athlete mindset, and especially for people who have CFS right now or any kind of nervous system issue where they're hypersensitive to things. Anybody who's going through this right now and used to be an athlete or used to play a lot of sports, whether it's on teams or individual sports, or people who used to be active. Now, I can totally relate to you because I used to be an athlete myself as well. In fact, I played a lot of sports like football. I was a football team captain at one point. I was a wrestling team captain for 3 years. I played soccer for 8 years. I was very active growing up, and pretty much most of the sports, especially in elementary school, that's when it all started, I would play as many sports as I could. I would fill up my schedule to have as much competition, as many games as possible, because I was one of those kids who just couldn't sit still. Always wanted to get out on the field or out on the court. I wanted to just be active. I wanted to be constantly moving around. I remember telling myself growing up, I can't picture life without fitness, or I can't picture life without sports. I don't know how people survive without it. And I would literally tell myself that. And I would also tell myself if something were to happen and I wasn't able to play sports anymore, that my life would be over. Lo and behold, when I was 19 years old, I had to completely stop working out, really doing any kind of physical activity. Even going up the stairs was tough for me, because going up the stairs, I'd have lots of heart palpitations, I would get dizzy, I would have lots of POTS symptoms. At the time, I had no idea what POTS even was. I just knew I was feeling a lot of crazy things in my body. It felt like I was falling apart. And every time I would feel that, the athlete mentality would kick in and just be like, you're facing adversity, you just got to push through it. And so I try to push through it, and I try to use my athlete mindset and apply it to this scenario. But that was probably the opposite thing that I should have been doing, because as I started to push more, as I tried to get through this thing and really grind it out, it only made things worse. It was a lot more than just being a limit in my mind. I felt the physical limits in my body, and I didn't realize. Now looking back, I know that it's the body screaming out and really telling me to slow down. But at the time, I took it as, well, if I slow down, then I'm giving in. I'm letting this thing beat me. So there's that competitive mindset that you bring into this. But, you know, for people who are in the situation right now, maybe you're in the situation, you have some, if not a lot, of that athlete mindset still inside you, but your body is almost chained down. So your mind wants to go for a run, but your body won't let you. Your mind wants to go to the gym and work out, but your body says, no, absolutely not. So it will give you a lot of POTS, you'll have a lot of headaches, you'll have a lot of anxiety, panic attacks, lots of chronic fatigue. And so while your mind wants to do one thing, your body is telling you the other. It's giving you all these red flags every time you try and go do something. I wanted to make this analogy, right? So when you're playing, for example, let's take soccer. Depending on where you are, you can interchange your sport here. Maybe it's football, maybe it's hockey if you're up in Canada. But just think of it like you have to approach this illness and rewiring this nervous system from both a player and a coach perspective. Now, on one hand, right now you are just a player in the game. The player doesn't see things from a big picture point of view. His goal is right here, right now, get the job done. For you, it might be make it to the gym 3 times a week. It might be I have to go for a walk for 20 minutes a day. It might be I have to do X amount of X for 3 weeks, whatever it is, right? You have that player mentality engaged, but you need to take a step back and look at things from a coach's perspective. So the coach sees things from a different point of view. He sees the whole field. He sees what the player's doing as well as what everybody else is doing. And he's able to make the difficult calls to either sub that player out of the game, move his positions around. When you just have your player goggles on, you're not thinking about all these other things. When you're a coach, you're able to make decisions from a very objective point of view and take emotion out of it. So here's a perfect example that I break down on some of the Recovery Jumpstart calls. So sometimes the coaches sub out the players because they know they've been on all game. They need to sub them out so that way they can get the rest the player needs in order to avoid injury, because if they stay in too long, they're going to get injured, they're going to get tired. There's just no way the body can expend that much energy. A good example is hockey, right? The shifts are only about 45 seconds to 60 seconds long, usually, and then the players are subbed out. Imagine if you had a hockey player stay on all game or for a whole period. He'd just be absolutely exhausted. So when it comes to life, you need to slow things down. You need to get out of that mindset of just trying to push through it, and you're trying to bring that athlete mentality into this illness, because it's only going to make you worse. How do I know that? Because I've been in those exact shoes. So you need to be the player. Yes, you are the player, but you also need to put on your coach's goggles. You need to look at things from a coach's perspective, that when you have adjustment periods or when you take rest days or, a week off to really slow things down, a lot of people feel bad. They feel guilty because they feel like they're missing out. They feel like they're not giving it their all. I used to feel that way all the time. I used to be a personal trainer at a pretty big gym company here in Vancouver, and I did not want to miss a day because I looked at missing a day as me failing or me letting this illness get the best of me, and I didn't want to admit to defeat. I didn't want that. It was also a little bit of an ego thing as well, because I had this identity of being this really good personal trainer who had lots of clients. So I did everything I could to maintain that status that I worked so hard to attain. There was this one time when I was actually so sick that I couldn't even drive because the room was spinning. I felt like throwing up. Headache was so bad. Even just getting up to get a glass of water, I would feel so sick, like you couldn't imagine. It was a really bad crash. If you have something like CFS and you've had it pretty bad, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But my stubborn mind was still trying to push through it. So I called my friend and I was like, hey man, I'm so sick to drive, but I can't miss these clients. Can you pick me up from my house and drive me to work? And then my buddy, he picked me up, drove me to work. And then I powered through a bunch of sessions, even though I felt like absolute death. And that was that inner athlete mentality of doing literally whatever it takes that put me in that position. And you don't want to approach it that way. You want to approach it from a place of patience, of understanding that it will take time to get better. But I think most of all, you need to accept the fact that, look, your body it's not broken permanently, but temporarily you need to take some time off your body. You need to sub yourself out. It's almost like your coach is pulling you out. You want to stay in the game. You feel bad stepping out. That's like the sports analogy. In real life, in reality, that's you saying no to your friends wanting to hang out, skipping out on social gatherings, skipping out on family dinners and events. And yes, it hurts. It stings. Nobody wants to miss things like that. I was in my early 20s, so these were my prime years, at least I thought. And having to say no to these social gatherings was devastating, because at that age, people are going out to bars, they're going out to have bonfires, they're having these awesome fun summer days or like camping trips, and I couldn't go on any of them, and I just felt so bad. When I piled on all that guilt, it just made me feel not only worse mentally and emotionally, but your physical being is a reflection of your inner world a lot of the times, especially with this illness. I'm not talking about if you break your leg or you have an actual illness in your physical body, in your organs that's detectable. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if they have done lots of tests on x-rays, ultrasounds, MRIs, blood tests, and nothing is showing up and everything looks ordinary, it's nothing out of the ordinary, then you can bet that your nervous system has gone haywire. And the more stress you add, the more guilt you have towards yourself, the worse you're gonna get. You're either gonna get worse or you're gonna stay stuck and you won't be able to improve. So in order to improve, I think the first step is really accepting your situation, that, okay, this is a pretty shitty situation to be in. It really sucks. I'm suffering a lot of the days, but just understand that this is temporary. Like, you need to sub yourself out of doing things how you would normally do them. You need to give your body a break, because the way you got here was you were under a lot of stress. And sometimes it's not even your fault, let's be real. Actually, there were quite a few people in the program in Recovery Jumpstart who, yes, they were very stressed. They put a lot of pressure on themselves. But the thing that really put them over their stress threshold, and stress threshold is something I talk about in this video. It's really important you understand that if you want to get better. Some people, they're stressed, but the thing that put them over the edge was something like a virus, or something like a really bad flu, a bad cold. Lots of times it's a virus, and that's what triggers everything. And so when your body gets super stressed, it starts to shut down. It starts to go into survival mode. It starts to go, I shouldn't say shut down, it goes more into a lockdown mode where it's on high alert. Everything is gonna seem stressful and it's gonna perceive things as stressful. Even if they aren't stressful, it will look for dangers because it's trying to protect you. In order to snap out of that, first you need to accept what's going on and stop adding on the physical stress and stop falling into these negative cycles that I talk about in a lot of my other videos. But just think of it that way. Think of yourself like you're both an athlete, but also the coach. You need to make the responsible decisions to be able to say no to certain opportunities in your life, knowing that it's just temporary. You're subbing yourself out, but you're gonna go back in before you know it. It might take a few months, might even take like a full year. But if you stay in the game, if you keep trying to push through this, you're only gonna get worse and worse. And I don't say that to scare people. I just say that because that's the honest truth, right? I thought I could just push through it for all these years and ignore it and keep myself busy to distract myself from this stuff. I thought that the busier I was, the less I would have to think about my symptoms, and I would be so distracted that my body wouldn't be able to process the symptoms. No, you don't want to run away from the symptoms. That's only going to make things worse. You want to acknowledge them, understand they're there, and then recover based on science, right? You don't want to do any more guesswork. But that's all I wanted to share today is you got to be the player, but you also got to be the coach at the same time. And you got to be very responsible in that sense. I hope this video helps. If you did get some value out of this, then make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment down below, make sure you subscribe. And also if you did need some extra help on your journey with CFS and you needed an extra hand, you wanted to learn a little bit more about the science of how to recover, make sure to apply to Recovery Jumpstart. We break down a lot of these concepts and there's a lot of hands-on work where you can truly be the player and someone like myself, I'm the coach, I'm able to help guide you through that. You know, you're with a group of people who are all recovering together. It's a very small group. So having said that, remember you are just one mind shift away from living a life with thriving health. I'll see you in the next video.